Dad kicked me out while I was hospitalized following an accident, because stepmom lied about my stealing the car. 2 years later, they wanted me at their vow renewal. 2 years ago, I had a terrible vehicle accident. I was bedridden for 3 months after being rear-ended by a drunk truck driver. I couldn't move a muscle after the accident since everything hurt so much. Although I was really busted, my dad tossed me out of the house anyway. At 18, I was practicing for my driver's license test a few days away when I had the accident. I was in the neighborhood and hadn't driven far. I explicitly asked my stepmom for permission because my father had made it obvious that I needed to consult at least one parent before taking the car out. I asked her since my dad was at work, and she said I could take the car. She eventually changed the tale to say I was visiting my buddies to look cool. I stole the automobile and left without asking. My dad believed her without hearing my side story and expelled me. Although my stepmom had always been odd, I never expected her to lie to my dad and get me tossed out of the house. She was in my life since I was 4 and my biological mother was absent. She abruptly decided to give up motherhood after having me and signed away her parental rights. Since she and my dad were never married, she left easily. My father was willing to raise me alone, so he never questioned it. I was glad she never tried to be my friend. Even my father started dating my stepmom when I was 4, and they married after 3 years. By then, I realized my stepmother didn't want to be my mother. She was only my father's wife. We didn't get along as kids, and she avoided me, but as I got older, we argued more. Even over minor issues, she would escalate them and complain to my father about my bad behavior, which was irritating because she started the confrontations. We were already at odds, and I was excited to go to college in a few months. That never happened, and I had to move in with my grandparents because my father no longer wanted me. This wasn't about money since my dad's rich. He owns a paper company aside from that. He insured his family's health and car. So I know it wasn't money. He kicked me out because of what my stepmom told me about the accident. She told him a ridiculous narrative about how I wanted to look cool and drive the car out without her permission because I was going out with my buddies. She informed him she had heard about it by spying on me and cautioned me not to do such things after hearing that talk. But I disregarded her and went out of my way to do that. After the accident, the doctors stated I would be bedridden for 2 months until I could move normally. My stepmom started lying to my dad about me, adding to my agony from the accident. After fighting about the facts for a week, I lost my calm and screamed at her, calling her names. I accused her of lying and said she was jealous she couldn't have my father all to herself. I said she was crazy in the brain for trying to accuse me of something I hadn't done, especially considering my state. My father finally gave up and moved me to my grandparents' house, who were generous enough to take me in. I was furious that my father was throwing me out of the house when I was in such bad state, and I informed him that choosing my stepmom over me meant I would never see him the same again. He stated I needed to be disciplined, and he couldn't keep hurting his wife because I didn't know how to behave and wanted to be a brat. I knew he had chosen his side and believed my stepmom's account because he didn't trust me. After that horrible experience, I decided never to speak to him again. It was hard for me to choose because it was just me and him since childhood. Mentally, my stepmom was never part of my family. She was there all along. Yet I never considered her family since I'm sure she didn't consider me family either. After my father's choice, I thought none of them were worthy of being named family because that was a huge word with a lot of duties. My father attempted to help me, and I appreciated it, but he valued my stepmother more. After I moved in with my grandparents, they took care of me and hired a full-time nurse. They were friendly, and we always got along. I only didn't move in with them earlier because I hoped my father would change. Poor me, he didn't. However, they were kind and made me feel loved since they understood I was going through a difficult time. They tried to get my father to visit me, but he kept making excuses like being too busy or weary from work. After the accident and after kicking me out and moving me to my grandparents' house, he never visited me for about 2 months. His behavior upset my grandparents, who fought him since it was unfair to me. My father told them he had no plans to reconcile with me soon, because my stepmom no longer approved of me and had given him an ultimatum to pick between her and me, which he chose, until I learned to be a better person and get along with others. He couldn't see us having a relationship because I had been a difficult child to deal with recently, and he couldn't put up with that kind of behavior anymore, for his own and his wife's sake. Since then, we haven't spoken. My grandparents sent me to college after I recovered and have supported me throughout. 2 years have gone, and I'm graduating in 1 year. Moving on with my life has been challenging, but I have nice friends and grandparents to help me, so it's easier. Anyway, I hadn't heard from my parents in years and hadn't planned to get back at them or disrupt their life until recently. I was fine without him, but my stepmom must have significant mental issues since she contacted me last week to invite me to her and my father's wedding vow renewal in 2 weeks. I didn't understand why she wanted me there, so I wrote back immediately to say I wasn't coming. But she informed me that I had to be there because my father was going to contact me in a couple of days to question me about it formally, and because several of his business associates were going to be there. They saw family photos of his desk and realized he had a daughter. It would be strange to explain why I was away from such an event, and my father was trying to reach me to apologize for the file. She wanted me to accept the invitation and forget everything. It had only been 2 years, but I would never forget how my dad made me feel. That message was ignored, and I went about my day, but a couple of hours later, she messaged me again, saying that she had always known that I was an ungrateful brat who didn't know how to behave, and that I was still trying to show how low I could go. Especially when my dad was trying to make things right with me, even though I didn't deserve it. She then threatened me with being there or losing my chance to inherit my father's business or money. She promised to make sure of it, which irritated me since she thought she could terrify me with her silly threats. That's when I blocked her, because she drove me crazy. I had previously blocked them on social media. I didn't block their numbers because it seemed needless. However, I blocked both their phone numbers following that message. I assumed this was the end of it, but she emailed me and said I had to accept the invitation because the wedding vow renewal was not only for them. It also involved my father's work. He desperately wanted me there. Even then, she couldn't have treated me better, especially when they needed me. She kept threatening me, and I had enough. I refused to run away from these issues, so I wrote a post and attached all the evidence of our chats. I wrote about everything in the past and called her and my father out on social media. I made it public and tagged my dad, stepmom, and 2 of his work acquaintances whose names and social media sites I recognized. I wanted his work acquaintances and business associates to know what he had done to me in the past, since my stepmom had made it clear that the renewal of their wedding vows would be a business event for them. I didn't expect anything after the post, but a day later my grandparents told me my father was distraught since I had caused them a big loss. They were planning a merger with an office products company in a few months, but my post may have canceled it. It would be a major issue for his firm. But since I tagged people in my article, word went around about what happened to me, and my father's reputation took a knock because he didn't seem good in that post. Now, the merger is in question since my father hasn't heard from anyone working with him, and he thinks it's because of my article. My grandparents think what I did was bad, and I shouldn't have included my father since my stepmother was being rude to me. I also feel guilty. AITA for publicly criticizing my father and stepmom. After a few days, I decided to retract my post attacking my parents. Some of you have asked me why I called my dad and stepmom my parents when I don't get along with them. My dad is my biological parent, and even though I don't like my stepmother, I've grown up calling her my parents. Not sure how else to say it. It's not deep, so no biggie. I removed the post and unblocked my father to contact him. Most people in the comment section think I don't owe anyone an apology, but I wanted to state that I didn't mean for something so horrible to happen, since I had no information about the merger and how significant it could have been for his firm. I didn't apologize, but I defended myself by saying that everything that happened 2 years ago still bothered me and I hadn't moved on. It was devastating to learn that he was going to invite me to an event to make amends, but only because he wanted to pretend his family was normal in front of his business associates. My stepmom's nasty behavior with me irritated me. So I wrote the post in one SMS and sent it to him. I didn't expect him to reply because I thought he'd be furious over what occurred, but he did and said it was fine. After his actions, he deserved this. He didn't blame me for my reaction. That seemed odd, so I asked my grandparents why he was acting so strangely. I expected him to be mad and yell at me for what I did, but nothing like that happened. When I asked my grandparents, they said he had been regretting his actions for a long time, and it all came to a climax when I posted that post. They indicated they had recently addressed these matters with my father before I sent him that SMS. He said he regretted kicking me out. He said he was confused about what to do, but it was his choice. My stepmom always made it sound plausible when she told him how bratty and bad my behavior was, and he accepted it, but then he started doubting himself and what she said a few weeks after he kicked me out. He never had the confidence to make amends with me, and he knew he deserved this, so he didn't retaliate or argue when I wrote him that text. They also told me that he intended to invite me to the renewal of their wedding vows, not to impress his business associates as my stepmother had told me. It was a pretty intimate occasion, and his business associates were not invited, so he didn't understand why she said that. I never understood her reasons, perhaps to irritate my dad. However, he saw my screenshots and realized that my stepmother had a lie problem, and they were going through a tough period. The boys hadn't responded. The person he was intended to combine with. He assumes it's been canceled, and will receive a formal email later. His personal life is in ruins, so he's focusing on that. I don't know how to feel after that conversation with my grandparents. I did the right thing by reaching out to him, and they were proud. Even if it wasn't to apologize, because my grandparents don't think an apology is needed, since my stepmother caused a mistake and I reacted like anybody else. They appreciate that I reached out to him to make things right. However, this circumstance with my dad and me leaves me unsure how to react. Things have been awful between us for 2 years, and before I didn't talk to him, I could handle my feelings better, but now I don't know how to feel. Update: too many comments on my previous update advised me not to contact my father again. You folks may disagree, but I don't think that's the best approach. However, I breached the no contact rule by contacting him after that post, so I can't just go back. My unresolved difficulties and questions make me think I can't go back to no contact with him so soon. I might talk to him once to have closure or something. But until then, I don't think your idea is practical for me. You might call me weak or stupid, but I know what my heart wants and what's healthy for me. I've got this. Anyway, I informed my grandparents how I felt and suggested we sit down and talk. They also thought it would be a nice idea and are talking to my father about meeting up. I hear he and my stepmom are having trouble and may divorce. It would be humorous if they split instead of renewing their vows, which was about to happen. Discuss irony. However, my grandparents have been in touch with my father and are attempting to restore their relationship with their son because they have less time than I have and must make the most of it. I understand why they want to reconcile with him. My grandparents told me that my dad is devastated and doesn't care about the merger because all he talks about is how he screwed up as a father and failed me. I can see where he's coming from. Don't think I've considered his perspective. My grandparents say they'll talk to him and let me know when we can meet. I hope it goes well. Hello, update 3. 2 days ago, I saw my father after 2 years without seeing him. We met at my grandparents' house, and it was emotional. It's still unbelievable. I was able to sit down with him and discuss everything that was upsetting me and get answers to my long-standing questions. He apologized for what he had done to me and said that he knew he had failed as a father and did not deserve to be in the same room as me because I had turned out to be a better person than he had ever imagined, and he had no role in any of it, which I don't believe. Since my stepmother avoided me as a child, he raised me alone. Our connection soured as I got older and things went wrong with my stepmom, but he was a fantastic father before that. However, he admitted that he had made many mistakes, including trusting my stepmother over me, because she was older. He figured she was telling the truth, and he never thought she would lie to him, because she was very good at manipulating him when they were alone. I must admit, she spoke smoothly. He told me he was influenced and confused about who to trust, so he made the wrong decision. Even after doubting himself, he didn't have the guts to own his mistakes and talk to me. That's why he didn't contact me after kicking me out. He stated he was deeply sorry for everything, and it was up to me to accept his apologies and work on our relationship. He informed me that even if I didn't forgive him and resumed no contact, he'd be fine with it because he understood he'd screwed up big time and had to accept whatever I did. He also told me he and my stepmom were divorcing and she had left the house. After seeing those screenshots, I realized she lied about why he invited me to the vow renewal. They had a tremendous fight when he asked me what she said. She admitted everything, even lying 2 years ago, about the automobile accident and why I had it. He asked her to leave and filed for divorce after that because he could no longer be with her. I told him I needed time to decide because I was having trouble deciding right then. I'm trying to decide whether to give him another chance. I know most people think I shouldn't, but he's my father and only I can decide. As an adult, I don't need him for anything. He needn't depend on me either. After college, I'll work for myself and be financially independent. That portion is out of the equation, just in case someone wanted to accuse him of attempting to make things right with me, because he planned to depend on me after he retired. A popular argument here. I doubt that's the case because his business is doing well with or without the merger. Even though his reputation suffered, his sales did not. That ought to say it. It's an emotional father-daughter connection, and I have to determine whether to work on it, because he's my sole parent in the past several years. I've been horrible. I can't allow that take away from his good deeds. I'm publishing it here to get feedback because I'm still undecided. This is my only chance to fix things and have a regular family. Before making any comments, remember that I want things to work out. Update 4. Well, I'll strive to improve my relationship with my father. We start therapy next week. I hope it works. We'll also try to chat more to repair our relationship. It makes my grandparents happy and gives me hope for the future. I'm truly ready to move on from everything.